research, the earliest stage of your career, early stage of your research rather than career. So what I'll do today is that I'll give you a broad idea of how to conduct the research, how to start the dissertation, thesis writing, etc. I think when if you're enrolled in university, and if you have admission, if you are admitted in some university and planning to write your thesis, the first stage is that you'll have to get your synopsis passed. And normally, synopsis, what is synopsis? I'll tell you briefly later. But for the time being, just remember that synopsis is the broad research proposal that you propose for your PhD research. The first thing, the PhD, when you start your PhD, the first thing that you should ask yourself, why are you doing it? Why are you in a university conducting research? And the most important thing that would be in your mind that you are enrolled in some university partly because you want to conduct research and you're interested. Maybe some of you haven't thought about your passion, etc. But many of the researchers I have found in my university, in where I teach, Jawaharlal University, that they're pretty passionate about the field. So it's not, and there are yes, the career opportunities that also comes with your PhD, with your thesis, because when you apply for these jobs in most of the universities, for your assistant professorship or for some research fellowship, etc. They do ask you that what is your research background. So most of the students here, after a few years, you'll be applying for research jobs, research or teaching jobs. So your PhD becomes important in many places where you apply for jobs, say for instance Uttar Pradesh or Bihar or many other places in India. So they ask you that do you have PhD or not? And if you have PhD, they offer you certain points for your PhD research. So if you don't have PhD, it is difficult to compete with the students who have their PhD. I think all of you know about it. But when it comes to dissertation and thesis writing, I think a few things would be very important. The first and the foremost and the most important thing in my mind, how do you begin with? The first is the research question. That unless until you have a very solid research question, you cannot conduct a good research. So research question, in my view, is primary and fundamental to starting any research. How do you frame your research question? How do you formulate the questions which are different, which are relevant? I'll come to that in a minute. But first step is that you should have a very solid research question. And when you're writing your thesis, remember that you can have 3, 4, 5 questions, primary questions, and of course you can have secondary and subordinate questions which are related to the primary question. But in the first stage, when you're writing your proposal, when you're planning your writing for a thesis, do not have too many questions. Why? Because your thesis is a limited space that you have been given, a limited space provided by the system to you, where you can express yourself, you can articulate your ideas, you can that's your space, that's your work. Please remember, thesis is something which tells you what you are. Because if you're committing 4 or 5 years of a research, so that means that has to be the best that you have to produce, because that time and will not come again. When you start teaching, doing research, etc., then you won't get 4 or 5 years focusing on just one topic. For instance, when I'm a teacher here, I'm expected to write, say, a few articles every year. Few articles, I mean journal articles, not the newspaper articles. Journal articles every year. I'm also expected to write books, etc. But I have to write a book in a year. I have to maximum, 2 years I give to a book. As a consequence, I don't have 4 years that you have at this stage focusing on just one particular topic. So once you are focusing on once you are planning to write your thesis, the first thing is the research questions. Your research question has to be very clear and very relevant to the field. You might be from different social science background, different background, academic background. Some of the students would be from social science. Some of you might be from English literature. I got an email from one student asking me if she wanted to join this and if this workshop would be relevant for her. I said yes, it would be relevant for you. Although because I come from social science background, so my focus would be on social science. But again, scientific research, if you're planning to do, that would not be very different from the researches which are conducted in humanities. Although towards the end of it, the person who wrote me an email, please, you can ask me later the differences between social science research and the research that you do in humanities and literature. I'll explain you later. For the time being, let me focus on scientific research and some of the critiques of also scientific research. So the first thing, as I said, that research question is the primary thing. If you have too many questions, let's say for instance, I have seen students coming to me with synopsis where they have 10 questions. Now the problem is that if you have too many questions, you will get lost. Why? Because you need data, you need primary, secondary data to answer all the relevant questions, and that's not easy. It comes with practice. So what I suggest you at this stage that have 4 or 5 primary questions in the beginning. Not have too many, because if you have too many, you'll get lost. So once you have formulated your questions, say for instance, then what do you do at the next stage? So next stage would be that you need to answer the questions, right? And how do you answer the question? There are 2 stages. At the stage of synopsis, I'll tell you. I'll come to that. I'm just giving you an outline first, and then I'll come to detailed discussion on each point that I'm talking just now. The second stage would come when, so there are 2 stages. One is the stage of proposal, when you're proposing a research plan to your committee, to your supervisor, to your this research advisory committee, etc. The stage of synopsis, you don't have data with you. All right. So what they tell you, the committee will tell you, or the your center department will tell you that you can formulate a few hypotheses. What is hypothesis? I'll come in a minute. But hypothesis for the time being, just remember, is the tentative answer to the research question. All right. So you propose your hypothesis at the stage of when you're proposing your research, when you're designing your research, at the very beginning, when you're writing your synopsis. At that stage, you propose your. Virender, mute your mic here. You propose your hypothesis essentially because you want to answer the research question. And how do you answer the research question? How do you propose the hypothesis? I'll come to later. For the time being, just remember, you have to start with the research question. Shivam, all of you, please mute yourself. Yeah. Shivam, mute yourself. Organizer, can you mute Shivam? Yeah. Once you have the research question, then you propose your hypothesis. Hypothesis, as I said, just for the timing, just remember, hypothesis is nothing but the tentative answer to the research question that you have. What did I say? Tentative answer. In many places, I've seen the students do not understand hypothesis. In my university also, a lot of discussion takes place whether this is a good hypothesis, whether this is a bad hypothesis. Is hypothesis necessary? Can we do without hypothesis in a research? All of that I'll answer in a minute. But for the time being, just remember that after the research question, and you need to propose your hypothesis. Also remember that when you have the research question, you have formulated research questions. So also you need to propose a theory. Propose a theory or adopt a theory or borrow a theory which is already there in your literature. What is theory? The theories are the broader way to understand what you call the reality. Theories are it's a very parsimonious way. It's a very simple way to understand what you call the complex reality. Theories do not necessarily capture the reality. What is theory? Again, you ask me later. I'll answer that question. But you can also take the help of theories depending on the research. Many of the researchers in social sciences, they will have some certain theories. For instance, you plan to write, this. Sir, can you please start with how to figure out area? If somebody asking the question, you please ask me a question a little later. Let me give the background first, and then I'll come and answer each and every question. Don't worry. You can also take a theoretical line. You can also take a theoretical approach where you try to answer the question with the help of certain theories. All right. What is theory? I'll come to in a minute. So what did I say? A research question. Start with the research question. Propose a hypothesis, and then what did I say? You borrow certain theories, or you can also propose a theory. At the level of PhD, you are MPhil, etc. A good idea of the literature, and you have done your review of literature for the time being. So you have an idea what are the theories which might be relevant to you. So you can take a theoretical line. So theory again is a way to understand the reality. It's a very simplified way to understand the reality. And for the timing, just remember. So research question, hypothesis, theory. You can also ask me the relationship between hypothesis and theory a little later. So theory is important, research question, theory, and then comes what? Because you have asked the research question. What is democracy and how is India's democracy working? What are the issues that the tribal population of this Chhattisgarh they are dealing with? So you have the research question, but for the research question, you need data. And what kind of data do you need? You need the primary data and the secondary data. We are talking about the PhD thesis here, right? You cannot do just with the secondary data. We also encourage all the universities throughout the world, they encourage you to conduct some surveys or field trips so that you can collect some primary data. So your research question will be answered with the help of the primary and the secondary data that you have. And that is not enough, as I said. You also need to test your hypothesis because you have proposed your hypothesis. And hypothesis, as I said, is the conjecture, is the wild guess that you made based on your understanding and knowledge to answer the research question without collecting the data, because you proposed the hypothesis at that stage when you didn't have the real data with you. Uh, so, uh, so what you need actual data now when you're doing the research to test the hypothesis. All right, and then what you need, you have done, you will have to collect the data. And how do you collect the data? So first and the foremost and the primary step for you would be to review the literature. You'll go to your Google, you'll do the ChatGPT, you'll do the Perplexity AI, you'll take all the help of AI, and which is all fine. I'm not saying that you should not use AI, etc. You should use AI. Only thing is, you can ask me ethical use of AI. You have to you have to maintain integrity. You have to be honest when you're using an AI, and there are limitations. For instance, you cannot copy and paste from AI, but you can ask a few questions. That what are the books and the literature available on this? What are the Indian sources on this particular theme that you're working on, and what if you do not understand certain concept, so you can take the help of AI again. But please remember, many of the answers given by the AI would be incomplete, and many times they are biased also with a lot of prejudices, because the way AI has been trained, AI is trained mostly from say in the Western sources. So you cannot completely rely on AI. And yes, trust but verify. That's the rule when you're using the AI. And be ethical. You cannot copy even one or two sentences from AI and paste it here for your dissertation thesis. That is not allowed. That is unethical, and you'll be caught. And if you get caught, then your thesis dissertation would be kind of rejected by the committee. So use AI, but use ethical use of AI is important. So what I'm trying to say here, let's not deviate. The idea was the review of literature. So you'll do Google, you'll use the Chat GPT, etc., and to ask what is the literature available. And one of the best, one of the best way to understand what is the source of what is a good literature. Please read some of the good writers in the field. Read some of the journal articles of important journals. And today, there are 80% of the journals are predatory. Predatory means, they are not good journals. They copy from this place and that place, and they just publish it. Most of the online journals, most of them actually, we do not have too many good journals. So you have to ask your supervisor, you have to ask somebody who is an expert in the field, that what is the source that I should consult. And you have to consult the best journals which are available, both international journals but also some Indian journals, because most of us are from India here. So do the review of literature. But again, as I said, review of literature is not enough. You will have to collect some primary data. So when you review the literature, Google, so mostly the data that you will get would be the secondary data, because that has been said by somebody, and that becomes secondary data. But you'll need primary data. What is primary data and what is secondary data? Again, you ask me a little later. But let me briefly just get into this primary data thing, because that's important for your PhD writing. Primary data, there is no fixed definition of primary data, and it varies from discipline to discipline. That also you need to remember. Most of the teachers tell you, if you're from geography background, if you're from economics background, they will tell you, Viru, please mute yourself. So if you're from economics and geography background, they'll tell you that only the data that you collect the data that you collect from, say, you go to the field, collect the data. So that data would be primary data. When you ask yourself, you collect data yourself, so that becomes the primary data. But there is a challenge. Challenge here is that if you are a student of history, then you cannot go back to the Indus Valley civilization period and collect the data. Then how do you do the primary? How do you collect the primary data there? So in history, for instance, if you're from history background, so the primary data, if the classical text also becomes the source of primary data. Say if a book has been written by Kautilya Arthashastra, so that becomes a source of primary data. If you visit the Indus Valley fields and you see the field, you do some survey. Survey means you're not talking to the people, but observation that you make and collect some archaeological sources from there. So that also becomes primary data. If you have coins of a certain period, the numismatic sources will become the primary data for you. The school that I teach here, Jawaharlal Nehru University, and we have debated recently about what is primary and what is secondary. And I was part of the pedagogy committee for creating the research manual for this for my department, for my school here. And we came to the conclusion that primary data will vary. For in our school, for instance, in our department where I teach, the government sources are considered primary data. The United Nations data, UN, World Bank, IMF data, international institutions which are established and well reputed institutions, they are also considered primary data. But please remember, in many places they might ask you, in interview, etc. Sometimes they will ask you that what is your primary data, and teacher might argue because there is a lot of confusion in India. So teacher might tell you that no, what you have done is secondary, and that cannot be considered primary. You'll agree to that? Yes, sir. I understand what you're saying, but it also you very politely you will argue with them that in many sources, the department that you come from, there the government data is considered primary data, and the data from international institutions are also considered primary data. But by and large, we encourage, wherever is possible, that we encourage the students to kind of go to the field in social sciences, visit the area and talk to the people, collect some data, do some survey. And you can ask me what is survey and how to do survey. That I'll come later. So when you collect your data yourself, that certainly is the primary data. But also, as I said, in several disciplines, even the government sources and the international institution data would be considered primary data. And our School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, that is one of the most reputed institutions that you know. So that considers even the government data to be primary data. And we have a research manual. I'll show you the manual if I'm allowed to share here. So, so your research should engage with both secondary and the primary data. Why it becomes important? Because data constitutes an important part of your thesis. Many times, thesis, the focus is on novelty of the data. Have you collected something new or not? Are you trying to say something new or not? And if you're trying to say, what is the source of the data? Any scientific research, as you know, scientific research is based on two primary things. One is that you have to be logical, logic, inductive, deductive, etc. But also that logic is not enough. Even if you're logical, that will not be considered scientific research unless until your logic, your this what you call your data is what your opinion, your argument, your interpretation is supported by data, both primary and secondary. Secondary means you can use the journal books of other people, that will be considered secondary. But other data that the government data, international data, so that data that you're using or the data that you've collected yourself, that would constitute the primary, and that would constitute the primary data. And now the question that you might ask me, that many a times, is primary data always better than the secondary data? And that's a very important and relevant question, because your committee will certainly ask you what is the primary data that you have collected. So you will have to say that if you have collected the data, good enough. But remember that many times what data that you have collected or the data that you're using, even if that is primary, that's a requirement and that's important, but that is not necessarily the most authentic source of data. As you know that most of the governments in the world today, they manipulate data. They do not provide you the necessary data, and they try to project a very, this very, what you call, a glorified image of the government. So sometimes you have to very critical, you should engage critically with the data. Do not take data at the face value. Right? If the government data is there, or if the world institution data is there, So even if that is primary data, does not mean your data is completely reliable. Say for instance, the if you have taken the data from the Russian ministry today, Russian ministry will tell you that only 15,000 people have been killed in what you call this the war which is going between Russia and Ukraine, and that's the government data. You'll come and argue with me, okay, sir, I have collected the primary data from the government source. You cannot question and dispute it, but I will dispute it. I'll tell you that no, that is primary data. I don't dispute that, but you have to engage very critically with the primary data, partly because the government data is not always the most reliable data. Government data is important. Many times it may be reliable, but again, many times it may not be reliable. The government of Russia does not provide you the exact figure how many soldiers have been killed, because it doesn't want to show to the people that it has lost so many people. Same is the case with Ukraine. Same is the case when many times the government in India, government in UK, US, everywhere. So they have the war today, as you know, the Trump administration. There's a lot of debate that Trump is not publishing the right data. The same is happening in India also and many other places. So what I'm trying to say that you have to critically engage with even with the primary data. Primary data should not be the something which cannot be questioned or which should not be questioned. Yes, it has to be questioned. You have to critically engage, and also the many times what people do in media and other research organization, that you authenticate not just with one data but also with other sources of data. If the government of Russia is saying only 15,000 soldiers have been killed, you also take the other government data. What they say, for instance, US government is saying, what is Ukrainian government saying, what is Indian government saying, or what are the other sources which are saying about the number of people who have died in the war. So that is necessary, and that's what you have to be careful even if you're using primary data. Now the third part the third part is that if you have collected the data, say for instance you have done the survey, so what do you do next? Then after that you will have to analyze the data, and that's the most challenging part, isn't it? There are two challenging parts that you're going to face when you are planning to do your research: how to collect the data. Taking interview is not easy. If you seek an appointment with me, I may not be available. If I'm available, I'll give you time, but many times I'm not available, so I'll not give you time. Even if I want to give, I can't. So many experts that you want to meet or take an interview, they're not easily available. They're very occupied people. So you'll have to use through your contact, through your sources, through your supervisor. You'll have to make a request. Yesterday I was in Calcutta, day before yesterday, and I'm doing a research on say multilateralism for India's foreign policy, etc. And in that I took an interview of say I requested interviews of Jadavpur University, two, three professors, and two agreed, two or three were not there. So I visited Calcutta, met a few people, and also met. So you'll have to take an appointment, and which is not an easy process. What I'm trying to tell you, so there has to be planning for it. You have to plan really well and in advance and take an appointment. If you just send an email, many times I get a survey email from some student doing research on particular topic. I don't even bother to reply to that. Because I don't have time to reply to each and every email. Although I try to, 99% cases I'll reply to the email, but sometimes if those kind of survey email comes, I normally avoid those emails. So they'll not give a response to you. So plan it properly. Get in touch with the experts. If you're working on democracy, get in touch with the experts who are working on democracy. If you're working on India's foreign policy, get in touch with the experts who are in India's foreign policy. You cannot simply go to the Varanasi and start asking people about India's foreign policy. It doesn't make sense, right? Everybody has an opinion on India. Atul, mute yourself. Yeah, Atul Kumar Yadav. Yeah, mute yourself. You'll have to identify the experts, and you'll have to get in touch with the scholars who are working in the field. And some of them will agree, some of them will not agree, and which is fine. Not everybody has to appear for your interview. So you'll have to collect from there. But if you're working on say perception of Modi government, so if you want to gather about what is the perception of government among the people, if that is the question, then you can ask the people. You can go to Varanasi, you can go to different areas in the country, and you can start asking people that these are the issues that I have, and I want to collect the data. For data collection, what you need to do, you'll have to prepare a questionnaire. If you're planning to do a structured questionnaire, so you'll have to prepare a questionnaire. I'll come to that later. I'm just giving you a background here at the moment. questionnaire can be of several types. You can have a structured questionnaire. Structured questionnaire is where responses are given. You are asking questions. Say, for instance, say, what is your age? And you have given 4 responses. 25 to 30, 30 to 35, 35 to 40, 45 to 50. So you are structuring the responses of the questionnaire. So that is a structured questionnaire that you need to prepare. And how many questions you can have in a questionnaire? You can have 10 to 15 questionnaire. You should not be taking too much of time. You cannot have 30, 40 questions where respondent is doing a favor to you. But if you're taking more than half an hour, so then you really, the respondent will get really pissed off because he's giving a time to you, and you have to be careful about other person's time. So have 10, 15 questions which are relevant to your research, and do not ask too many questions again, and just ask the questions which are relevant. But yeah, you can ask a few extra questions, which is fine, but limit yourself 30-minute, 40-minute, maximum 1 hour, not more than that. So that is the structured questionnaire, where you certainly ask name, age, education, class, caste in some cases if that necessary, nationality is, and then income, etc. So these are the control variables that you have certain variables which are control variable, and then you will have certain explanatory variable, the real variables which you will require for your research question that you have formulated. So remember, questionnaire that you're preparing, that has to be based on the research question, the 5, 4, 6, 7, 8 research question that you have started in the beginning. You can also have non-structured questionnaire. Non-structured questionnaire would mean that your responses are not structured. You're not going with a very structured format. You simply have certain few questions in mind that I'll be talking about. Say, for instance, I went to Calcutta and met Professor Majumdar there just day before yesterday. And I knew that it would not be fair to him to give a questionnaire and ask him to. So what I did, that we sat in a coffee shop, and then I asked a few questions to him, and he very kindly responded to our question. 3 of us were sitting there, 3 or 4 of us, and he responded. So depending on the way he was answering, I was formulating my own question, which is relevant to my literature, which is relevant to my research question that I have. So that is non-structured way. So I didn't go with a structured question. I just had broad idea that these are the questions that I need to ask him. And then depending on his answer, then I asked a few other questions which came just out of discussion. So what I'm trying to say, you can have a structured questionnaire, and you can also have non-structured questionnaire. Uh, so uh, so that is the stage of data collection. But again, the next stage would be, if you have collected the data, how do you analyze the data, right? So also, how do you analyze? That means you have to have a very good training in research methodology. What is research methodology? Research methodology is a very scientific way to analyze the data and the observation that you have made, and that's a requirement for any scientific research. Irrespective of whether you're from physics background, whether you're from social science background, or from literature background, they'll ask you that whatever you are trying to say, it has to be supported by some observation, that observation that you made, primary, secondary, whatever. So you'll have to analyze the data. So what are the approaches that you can follow in social science research? There are different approaches that, again, first, you'll have to ask yourself, do you have training in quantitative methodology? Do you have training in qualitative methodology? So your research and your analysis of the data can be qualitative, it can be quantitative. But remember that just because you have used certain numbers, if you have given certain tables in your dissertation, it doesn't make your study quantitative. It doesn't make your data quantitative. Quantitative analysis of the data would mean that you'll have to use some statistical software, statistical techniques, some statistical, some, say, for instance, confidence interval, regression, multiple regression, or correlation, etc., chi-square. So you'll have to use statistical method of what you call inferences. If you're not doing it, just because you have given a table, doesn't mean that your study becomes quantitative. So quantitative research would mean that your data has to be quantitative, and your analysis, the way you analyze the data, also has to be quantitative. Just because you have used certain table with numbers, you have given the figure of Delhi city with this population, this gender, which is all quantitative, that doesn't make your study quantitative. That you have to remember. The inferential method has to be quantitative. Only then, in the research methodology section, you will say that your study is quantitative. If you're not doing quantitative, it's perfectly fine for all of you to have a qualitative research. Best of the researches are also, let me tell you, qualitative. It can be quantitative, but it can also be qualitative. And whether the research is qualitative or quantitative, what matters is not whether it's quantitative or qualitative. What matters is that whether you have followed a scientific procedure that I'm telling you just now or not. Whether you have used a certain scientific method to collect the data, to analyze the data or not. Whether the structure of the thesis is scientific or not. Whether the method of logic that you apply is inductive or deductive or not. So long as you are following this what you call scientific method, so your research would be considered, scientific, but the data and the data analysis, as I said, it can be qualitative, which is equally scientific, and qualitative, which is also scientific. But some researches here, some deviation will come if you are from humanities background, sometimes if you are from anthropology background or from history background. So historians will not find many times using the quantitative data. If you are from history background, so many times you go back to the history, use literary sources or archaeological sources, numismatic sources, etc. So your study is largely qualitative. I'm not saying that some data cannot be quantitative, but history by and large is qualitative. Similarly, in anthropology, I've seen when you do very intersubjective kind of study, or many times gender studies where you're dealing with discourses. Here from humanities background, the students, if anybody is from humanities background, uh, remember that your study is likely to be qualitative. And this is where you are going to differ and vary from some of the quantitative researches which are done by, say, for instance, economists or even political scientists. And if you are from, say, English literature, or if you are dealing with certain narrative, if you're dealing with certain concepts, so your study would be largely narrative kind of research. Post-colonial researches are narrative style of research, they are qualitative researches. Post-modern researches, they are qualitative researches. Most of the historical researches, as I said, they are qualitative researches. Most of the case studies again is an approach to do research. So again, most of the case studies are qualitative, and here the method used is what is called process tracing. You get into each and every step rather than a variable kind of study that you do in the quantitative study. If you are from English humanities background, and what is the difference between humanities and social science? Social science, we call it science, right? Social science means your study has to be scientific. So if you are from social science background, we'll expect you. We'll expect you. We also borrow some of the techniques of humanities, etc. But if you are from social science background, we'll expect you to do a scientific kind of research. And in terms of steps and the validity and reliability of data, you are not very different from, say, physics, chemistry, and mathematics, the way people do research in sciences. But if you are from English background, if you are from anthropology, if you are from history background, and these are the subjects, sometimes they are referred to as humanities. In many places, you'll find history in JNU is social, part of social sciences. But in many places and across the world, if you see, the history is also treated as a part of humanities. Anthropology and psychology, they're also treated as part of humanities. But psychology is very quantitative, let me tell you. Be it, this what you call as social psychology or individual psychology. So they are extremely quantitative. And because doctors are very good with numbers and they're happy doing quantitative study, but they also do qualitative study. So your study can be qualitative or quantitative. Your analysis, when you're approaching the analysis of the data, then again methodology becomes extremely important. And what I told you, entire thing is again taught in a methodology part, because when I teach methodology, I also ask the students how to formulate the research question. I also tell the students how to theorize, how to propose a theory, how to borrow a theory. What is a theory? I also teach them. I teach them how to propose a hypothesis. I teach them how to test the hypothesis, how to collect the data, and then how to analyze the data. Uh, Today, I'm giving just because this is just 1.5 hours kind of lecture, and then we'll have the rest for the discussion. And Simran, after 1.5 hours, you will please stop me, because I want to engage with the students, answer their queries and difficulties rather than just speaking. So
Absolutely.
after one and a half hours, you will stop me.
Yeah.
Uh, Yeah. Entire thing, the research methodology part, entire thing, in here we teach for 2 semesters. They do course in MA, then again when they do to PhD. In many places, they have separate class for foundational course on research methodology, and then they teach you one semester course on qualitative method, and then one semester course on quantitative method. And in some of the places, if you go to Harvard and Cambridge, etc., and also in some of the places in India, they also teach you game theory method, etc. Game theory, again, you can ask me later. I don't want to deviate in today's class, so I'll not talk everything today. But yes, there are different ways to analyze the data, different ways of conducting the research. So let me now, so analyze the data, and then what you do that after you have analyzed the data, then you will have to test the hypothesis. So with the help of the way that your data is saying, the way your data is speaking, then you will test the hypothesis and you will answer the research question. And that would be the conclusion part and summary part of your research. So now, if I tell you, so the first thing that you need to, I'm coming back now. This was largely the, what I can say is the background, right? And you need to keep that in mind. Research quest, 4 cardinal things. You can see some of the videos are there of my video on a research question would be there. Some of the videos would be on how to formulate the research question or what hypothesis. Just type Dr. Rajan Kumar research, this, what do you call, lectures, etc. In that you'll find many of the videos on research method. So please follow that, and that will give you some idea of, but 4 cardinal things that I want you to know, and you must remember this, that whenever you're planning to do research, or if you're writing a research proposal anywhere in the world at any point of time, you'll remember me for just 4 things. That I said what? 4 things that you have to do: research question, theory, data, and data analysis. 4 things, right? And writing a research proposal, writing a synopsis, writing a theory, whatever you do, you cannot do without these 4 things: research question, theory, data, and data analysis, scientific research. You get it? So these 4. Now let me come very quickly. Let me come back to how to formulate a research question, how to ask a research question, because it appears that anybody can ask a research question. No, you cannot. You should be asked. You are a PhD scholar. You will be considered master of the art, master of the craft in the field that you're doing the research, and you will be the best known in India because you are doing on something which has to be different. That, as I said, that's your room, your space. That's your academic room, the room that you live, that you do not want other people to share your room with you. So similarly, that is your own space, your mental, cognitive, academic space, and you have to assert yourself. You have to bring something new, which your room, every room of student is unique. If you go to hostel, they want to decorate in a certain way, keep in a certain way. You want to live comfortably. So similarly, your dissertation is your space, remember. So what you are writing, it has to be your writing. It cannot be just somebody else's writing. So please do not copy, and please do not plagiarize, either in terms of copying the words or the phrases, or in terms of copying the ideas. What you are allowed to do, that you are allowed to take somebody else's idea and give proper reference. So referencing is necessary. Plagiarism is a crime, as you know. It's a moral and ethical crime, but also a legal crime. So if you're plagiarized, then you'll be caught at some point, if not today, maybe tomorrow, and then you'll be in trouble because your thesis and dissertation would be rejected. So do not try to copy. Do not try to act smart and use ChatGPT for your paraphrasing, etc. That again would be unethical, and that's a legal and moral crime. But coming back to the research question that I said, so ask a question which is socially relevant, because we are from social science background, I believe. Ask a question which is relevant to your discipline. If you are from English literature, please ask a question which is emerging from the literature. If you are from social science background, ask a question which is socially relevant, because we are all from social science background, and people will be interested in reading your dissertation. You are writing your dissertation not for yourself, remember. You're writing your dissertation for your passion, but also for the other people. You want other people to know that you are the smartest writer on this particular topic, and you have to produce something really novel, and you have to produce really good. And that's why I said thesis is your space, your room, academic room, and there you have to say something different. So ask a question which is socially relevant. Ask a question for which nobody, it's possible that in some of the issues nobody has asked a question. So novelty of the question is important. If what is India's democracy? So many people have asked on it, right? So try to tweak it in a way which can bring new data, which can bring new answer to one of the questions which are there, but people have not answered that research question. So novelty of the research question is important, and that is not easy. The more when I write for Indian Express, I write for different journals, I've written several books, I can tell you that asking the research question is the first but a very difficult task. Why? Because I want to say that if am I asking something different, am I answering something different? But you answer a good answer will not come unless until you ask a good research question. Why? Because if you're asking confusing research question, then you will be answering in a very confusing way. You will never find the concrete and the real answer to that. So you have to frame a research. So ask a critical question, a question there are so many people who have answered about India's democracy, but what is the critical aspect which nobody has asked? And can you frame a question like that? Also, you can ask a question. For instance, so many people ask the question, but you do not agree with the answer. You have done the review of literature, you have Google it out, you have read in the chat GPT, but you know that this is not the right answer to the research question. So if you do not agree, then you should ask the same research question, but you believe that I can answer this question with a different interpretation, with a different set of data, which has not been done by the other people. So remember, ask a socially relevant question. Ask a question which nobody has asked. That again, you can also ask a question which has been asked, but for which you believe that a different answer is possible, and you are going to give a different answer. So you can also repeat the question which has been asked. You get it? Sometimes there are two sides of the three sides of the debate. So you can also ask a question from one approach. Say, for instance, you are from political science background or international politics background. So in which most of the answers you'll find the people answer from, say, realist approach, following a realist approach. All of you might be knowing what is realism, etc. Sometimes they answer the question from a constructivist approach, sometimes from Marxist approach, or say from liberal approach and the political economy approach, etc. So you can frame a question from one of the approaches, and you can also ask a question, and that would be considered an important contribution to the literature. Important thing when you're writing your thesis, remember, you have to contribute something different, contribute something new. You cannot reinvent the wheel. You cannot reinvent the fire. The fire has been reinvented. Fire has been invented. The wheel has been reinvented by the people in the Neolithic period. So there is no point asking a question which has a good answer, which is already. And when you agree to that, there is no point asking that question. You should be asking a question where you believe that there is some novelty. It will lead to some innovation. It will lead to answering something which has not been done by the other people. But it's perfectly okay to also take question which has been answered, but you do not agree to that. Or if you think that you can provide some more data. So these are the things that you need to keep in mind when you are asking a research question. And remember, when you're writing your thesis, you'll be writing how many chapters? You will not be writing 20 chapters. You'll be writing how many chapters? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 chapters, not more than that. Most of the books also, they do not have more than 10, 12 chapters. You will be in the dissertation thesis, and most of the dissertation that I've seen, most of the dissertation PhD thesis that I've seen here, the students write about 200 pages, typed, one space, 200 pages in JNU. But again, there is no limit. One can write also 300, 400 pages. That's perfectly fine. But the standard, I'm saying, the average is 200, 250 pages that most of the students here in the social sciences, they write. So how many chapters you can have? You can have 4, 5, 6 chapters. Right? One would be introduction, one would be conclusion. That's mandatory, and that you have to do. So one mandatory would be that if you leave aside 2 chapters, how many chapters are left? So you are left with only 3, 4 primary chapters. Right? If you leave aside introduction, if you leave aside conclusion, so only 3, 4 primary questions are there. 3, 4 primary chapters are there. So for every chapter, you can have 1 or 2 questions, not more than that. Primary question, I'm saying. You can have some, secondary questions emerging out of that, which is fine. But primary questions in each chapter, you should think, should propose your thesis in a way that you'll have 4 primary chapters, and introduction and conclusion. And out of that, for each chapter, you will have 1 or 2 research questions. You get it? In one chapter, if you're asking two questions, the two questions should be related, because thesis, every chapter is a very integrated process. You cannot have two questions which are totally different, and your chapter is going haywire. You don't know how to ask the question. You don't know how to integrate the two answers of the question. So separate the chapter. All right. So what I'm trying to say, that for each chapter, you ask one or two primary questions, and after, when you go to actual chapters, then you can have develop within one chapter you can have subsidiary questions related to that. So 3 4 questions within that each chapter, but those are subsidiary. At the level of synopsis, just have 5 6 questions, and in each chapter, because when you go for committee meeting, RSC or whatever committee, advisory committee that you have, they'll ask you that where did you answer this question, in which chapter, what is your research finding. That's the thing that they'll ask you if you go for assistant professor interview. They'll ask you, what is your hypothesis? What is your research question? They'll ask you, what is the research finding? So your research finding would be the research question that you formulated, and the research question that you answered in each chapter, that is the research finding. Right. So similarly, you formulate the question, not too many questions, 6, 7, 8 questions, primary. But again, within the chapter, you can have one question will lead to several other questions. Say, for instance, I'm asking about India's democracy. So I'll divide India's democracy into, say, the issue of legislature, issue of judiciary, independence of judiciary, independence of civil society, electoral processes. And when I go to electoral processes, then I'll have 3 4 questions related to electoral processes, which is fine. That when you're writing a chapter, write the introduction, but within the introduction, towards the end of the introduction, you will say that you are asking 4 primary these questions in this chapter. The first question is that how is India's electoral process working? What are the institutions involved in the management of election? Is electoral process fair in India? What are the debates, contemporary debates about the electoral process in India? And then, so these are the questions you can ask within the introduction of the chapter. But what I'm saying, that when you're proposing your research at the level of synopsis, you ask a limited question, and on the basis of the questions that you have asked, you also formulate the title of the chapter. Say, for instance, you have asked the question on the electoral process in India, how is it working? So then you will have to have a chapter on electoral process in India, right? If you're asking a question on the relationship between, say, India's economic growth and democracy, so you'll have to have questions on economic growth. You'll have to have questions on the relationship between economic growth and democracy. So it's a very integrated process. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Research question, and then your chapter is emerging out of those research questions. And then the moment somebody tells you that, where did you answer this research question? Where did you test the hypothesis? Immediately you will tell the person that I have answered this particular research question in the chapter, which is titled as blah, 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 whatever it is. You get it? So, so these are the ways you start your research. So asking with the good research question, which is important. Also, one thing which is becoming very prominent, interdisciplinary research. Many of you might be coming from economics background, and suddenly you enter into international politics. So then, what you do then is perfectly fine to apply one of the approaches that you have learned in one discipline, and you want to apply to other discipline. Say you're from economics background, you have learned this multiple regression, or you have learned econometrics, and you want to apply that econometrics to your political science. If you're doing research on something which is international politics, that's perfectly fine. Most of the universities, they will encourage interdisciplinary kind of research, and that's very acceptable way of doing the research. So if you have a question which is again coming from your discipline, and you want to apply that to a new discipline where you're doing a PhD, that is also fine. Interdisciplinary research, interdisciplinary method is perfectly fine for social science researchers. We encourage that kind of research, and don't be afraid in case you're coming from one discipline and you are switching to other discipline. That's perfectly fine. So that's the way you, so that was about the research question. Number 2, the second thing that I would like to, you have answered you have formulated 5 6 research question. Now you need to formulate hypothesis, right? And many of the university, we tell our students here in JNU that you have to formulate hypothesis. Now the question that you might ask me that, sir, is it necessary to formulate hypothesis for each and every academic research? Answer is no. Hypothesis is not necessary for each and every research. If you have an English background, That may not be necessary. Why? Because you are not necessarily dealing with the empirical kind of data. You might be writing, you might be working on Salman Rushdie's this what you call the novel, and your style of writing would be very different. So for that, it may not be required. But if you are dealing with the data, empirical data, then hypothesis is the right way to go about. Why? Because hypothesis is a way which will tell you that what kind of data you need to collect. Let me tell you how. Uh, for instance, you have formulated the research questions. My question is that I want to know that why is India's economy growing by 7.5%, right? That's the research I have in mind. Now, I don't know. I'm lost in the data. That how do I go and collect the data? What kind of data should I collect? I don't know. So what I'll do is that I'll formulate hypothesis. I'll say that I'll think at this stage before collecting the data at the stage of synopsis. I'll say that I think that I think I'm saying here, right? So I'm conjecturing, I'm guessing here. So I think that India GDP is growing because of the growth in the service sector and growth in the agriculture sector. What did I do? I speculated the answer. I preempted the answer. I tried to give the tentative answer that is there in my mind, either because of my knowledge or because of the literature that I've studied. So I'm speculating at the stage of hypothesis. I formulated a hypothesis that India's GDP is growing because of the growth in the service sector. So service sector is the independent variable here, and the growth is the dependent variable. What did I do? I correlated the independent and dependent variable because I'm looking for an explanation to the research question that I had. So what is it? This was hypothesis, right? So what is hypothesis? Hypothesis is the statement, tentative statement, which seeks to answer the research question in a speculative way. So an hypothesis is formulated at the stage of research design, at the stage of synopsis writing. It is not hypothesis is not formulated when you have completed your research. At that stage, you test the hypothesis, not formulate the hypothesis. So I formulated the hypothesis, and now what is the advantage of formulating the hypothesis? Now I immediately know that I need to collect the data on the service sector and the growth of India's economy. So I'll go to I'll go and collect the data on hotel industry, banking industry, financial institution, etc., the service sector. And then I'll see that whether the growth in that is contributing to the growth of GDP or not. You getting it? So to answer the research question, I formulated the hypothesis. And when the actual data is collected, I will test the hypothesis. I'll tell you later how to test the hypothesis. So research question hypothesis again can be of several types that you need to remember. It can be a very simple testable statement. Say for instance, if I say univariate kind of hypothesis, where I say India GDP is growing by 7.5%. Or you came with the hypothesis, no sir, I don't agree with you. India GDP is all manipulated data. India GDP is growing by 4% only. Okay, and that can again be hypothesis. So now you will come with your supporting data, and I will come with my supporting data. I'll say that this is the government figure, this is the IMF figure, this is the World Bank figure. So your data, so people will agree to that, because people also will look at your research about the credibility of research based on what kind of data are you using for supporting your argument. So if I've taken from government data, if I've taken from IMF, United Nations, World Bank, so those are the reliable sources of data. Or if I've collected myself the data, that again is considered an important source of data. Uh, so, uh, uh, so my data would be considered. But if you have come with with your opinion, sir, no, I don't agree with you. I say that the India GDP is growing by 4%, and I say it because this Congress Party leader has said, or the BJP leader has said that India GDP is 4%. So people, I'll say that what you're saying is an opinion. You have to support with the data. So there is a difference between opinion and the data. A person who is doing research based on some empirical and real data, that would be considered credible, that would be considered reliable. But if you're saying that just because a leader has said, a person has said, or just because Rajan has said, I have said that this what you call India's economy is the greatest in the world. So you will not agree to that, right? That's an opinion, and one is entitled to have an opinion. I'm not questioning Simran and Jacob's opinion here. But I'll ask Simran and Jacob here that please provide me the supporting evidence, and supporting evidence has to be reliable and valid. Now, the question that comes, you asked me what is the reliability and validity. I'll come to in a second, but for the timing, just remember, hypothesis can be simple testable statement, which I said just now. Hypothesis can also be a comparative statement. A comparative statement because it also helps you answer the question. Say, for instance, I say that India's GDP is growing faster than China's GDP because of the growth in service sector, growth in agriculture sector, and growth in what you call manufacturing sector. So what did I do here? It was not a univariate. There are multiple variables here. China's GDP is one variable, India GDP is one variable, and the service sector growth, industry growth, manufacturing growth, these are the different types of independent variables. So what did I do? I compared here, and I created a hypothesis, and then I said, I framed it in a way which is explanatory but also comparative in nature. So hypothesis can also be comparative. So what did I say? Hypothesis can be a simple testable statement, but hypothesis can also be a comparative statement as well as explanatory, all put together. Right? Say, for instance, Huntington. You might have heard the name of Samuel Huntington, who talks about clash of civilization, and when he wrote about the class of civilization. There's a book on class of civilization, so you can read. It's a book of international politics. So he said what when he was formulating hypothesis, he's saying this. So Huntington is saying that I hypothesize that the conflicts in the future in the world will not be ideological. It will be based on what is called civilization, the fault lines which exist in the global civilization, whether it's Islamic, with Christianity, Confucius, Hinduism, no, Judaism, etc. So he says that the future of the world would be determined by the classes of civilization rather than class of what do you call it, ideological conflict. Ideological conflict defined the Cold War period. But he is writing in the immediately after the post-Cold War period. So he is saying that the future conflict will not be ideological; it will be based on identity and the fault lines which exist between the different civilizations and different identities. So that was one way of hypothesis, right? So, so hypothesis is simple testable statement, a comparative statement, and you can also have what you call it, this explanatory hypothesis, where you connect independent variable and the dependent variable. A dependent variable is one, as you know, and it can have several independent variables in one particular statement. Say, for instance, if I say India's GDP is growing because of growth in manufacturing sector, agriculture sector, and service sector. So here, what is the dependent variable? Dependent variable is the growth in India's economy. And what are the independent variables here? Independent variables are what you call service sector growth. That is one independent variable. Agriculture growth, second independent variable, and industry manufacturing growth. That is third independent variable. So I had one independent variable, but several. So dependent variable is nothing but the effect, and independent variables are nothing but the causes. So you can have a simple explanatory hypothesis, uh, which can again be a good way, because in social science we are always trying to explain something. We're not just interested in description. We're also interested in getting to the root of the causes and finding out why did this happen. So getting to when you get to the root of the causes, you will have to have explanatory hypothesis. You can also call it causal hypothesis, where cause and effect would be correlated, and that's a very perfect way of formulating it. And most of the researchers in social sciences are causal in nature. We're not happy just with the description. We also want to know uh, 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 if Prime Minister Modi has gone to Jordan and Oman, and he's actually gone to Jordan, as you might be knowing yesterday. So he's in Jordan, and then he's going to Ethiopia, he's going to Oman, and then he'll come back to India. So you're not just interested in Modi's visit to different places. You're interested in why did Modi go there? What did he sign there? Why did he sign a deal with Oman? What are the advantages of signing a deal? So you are interested in explanation and not just in description. So when you are framing a question, you should also have questions which are explanatory in nature, not just description. Describing something, answering the question what, where, when, etc. But when you are explaining it, you have to ask the question why. Sometimes how. Why is it happening? Why did COVID happen? Why did Russia fight with Ukraine? Why did Trump put tariff on India? So you're interested in mostly explanation, not just description. So explanation is an integral part of your research. So formulate hypothesis. So two things I've already answered. Research question I've answered. Yeah, I've also answered what is hypothesis. Now, important thing that you need to know is a theory. Theory is just before that, because some of you, if you are not aware, what is variable? Variable is something which varies. Varying means changes. Growth rate of India changes. Age of Rajan changes. Gender of students, they can be variable. Education is a variable. Why? Because it's not constant, it's a variable. uh, One example that is very interesting that I always give in the class, that you always focus when it comes to explanation, do not please do do not use the constant and for to explain something. You always have to depend upon a variable. Variable means which changes. We are interested in variation. What led to this change, not the constant. What is the difference here between a constant and a variable? This is important to know. Say, for instance, I fall down from this building. I live on the sixth floor of an apartment in JNU campus. So if I fall down from this building, what would be the cause of my falling down? Somebody pushed me, or I was walking in the night. I didn't see the fence broke, balcony broke down, and I fell down and I broke the leg. So if somebody is doing the research of why did Rajan break the leg, he'll not say that Rajan broke the leg because of the this factor called there is a Earth has a gravity force, and because of the gravity of the Earth, he fell down and he broke his leg. Nobody will give that kind of explanation, right? If somebody gives that kind of explanation, then it becomes unacceptable. All right. If something is constant, then you please do not consider that as an explanation. You will never blame Earth gravity for Rajan breaking the leg. You will say what? No. Police come, investigation happens. Maybe Rajan was drunk. Maybe Rajan didn't see in the dark. Somebody pushed him, or the fence broke down because it was weak and fragile. So there can be several variables which will be taken into account when it comes to explaining. Rajan Kumar Mishra, I didn't break anyone's leg. All right, but if you break the leg, Rajan, you will be blamed because you are the variable and not the pistol through which that or the earth gravity because you fell down. So Rajan, what I'm trying to say that when you try to explain, Rajan is a name of a person in this group, so, and he's writing me a message. So no, you didn't break anybody's leg, and but if you break, then your family will not be blamed for that. You live in country that will not be blamed. The geography where he fell down on the stone will not be blamed for breaking the leg. You're pushing off that person and breaking the leg. You will be responsible because you are a variable. Pushing is a variable. So do not blame the constant. Always think in terms of variable when it comes to explanation. Coming to that, now I have to move on because one more thing before I move on, let me come to data and then probably I'll go to validity and reliability. You have understood what is a research question, you have understood how to formulate the you call hypothesis, and variables you have understood. And now let me come to what you call it data. So data in two things you have to remember when you're writing your thesis or when you're checking the data, validity and reliability. All right. So validity of the data is about the measurement, right? If you want to measure the temperature of Mr. Rajan Misra here, so you'll have to measure in terms of thermometer. You cannot simply, just you will not use the requesting you to hold off questions until then. Yes. Validity is about measurement. If you want to measure, say, for instance, the distance from one place to other, you use meter. You don't use liter for that, right? If you want to use the volume of water, so you use liter for that. So measurement has to be valid. The problem with the social science, why is it important? Because measurement is not very technical and quantifiable. How do you measure the democracy of a country? How do you measure that, this BHU is doing great or not? Patna University or whatever place that you come from, students are doing good or not? So many times it's very tangible, it's very qualitative. It's not it's not easy to measure the data that in social sciences you have. So validity is about measurement. You will have to employ the real measurement, or not real. You have to employ the valid measurement techniques to measure the data. Otherwise, your research would be considered invalid. For instance, many times, politicians come to me and say that, oh, India is a great democracy because India is growing by 8%. I said that's invalid. Why? Because the measurement that you're employing to measure the democracy, it cannot be measured by the per capita income or the growth of a country, right? And if you want to measure the democracy, you'll have to check whether judiciary is independent or not. You'll have to check whether the electoral processes are fair or not. You'll have to see that whether there is a separation of power between judiciary and legislature or not, media freedom, the freedom of expression, etc. So these are the tools that will employ for the measurement of the concept in social. So what I'm trying to say that you have to employ correct, accurate measurement technique to measure the concepts. We are measuring concepts here. We are not measuring just the distance or the volume of something. Second is reliability. Reliability is again important because your analysis would be reliable If if you follow scientific technique, scientific tools to collect the data, to analyze the data, you would be considered reliable. If I have done the research, followed a scientific procedure, collected the data scientifically and analyzed it scientifically, I have come to some conclusion. And the Dheeraj Maurya here, he has also done the research. He has also found he followed a scientific procedure. He has also collected a similar kind of data. But if I come to one conclusion and he also doing the scientific research comes to some different conclusion, which means what? Which means one of the researchers, or maybe both the researchers, are not reliable. Reliability means that if you are following scientific technique, then both of us should come to identical kind of conclusion. If he comes to something else and I come to something, which means that either his research is problematic or my research is problematic, or maybe both the researches are problematic. So which means that that research and the data may not be reliable. Reliability is about, that if A is doing research, coming to certain conclusion, and B is doing research, and both are scientific, then both of them should come to identical conclusions. So that is about. So you'll have to ask yourself when you're writing a thesis that whether the data is reliable or not, and whether the data is valid or not. So for validity, we'll have to follow the scientific process. Now, what is the scientific process? The scientific process again would be that you'll have to frame the right question. You have to analyze the data quantitatively. You have to make valid inferences. You'll have to be logical, and your data has to be reliable. Your data has to be credible, and your data has to support the research. If you do not do that, then your research will not be reliable. And validity, reliability are the two questions that you will always be asked when you go for when writing your thesis. Immediately they'll ask you that, oh, your research is not valid, your research is not reliable. So they'll raise the questions if you do not follow that. So that's about data that you need. But again, you'll have to master the quantitative technique. You'll have to do many more courses to understand what is quantitative method. You'll have to learn standard deviation. You'll have to learn this what you call confidence interval, probability. You'll have to do a G chart, p value, t test, etc. Then regression, different types of regression, logic, probit. All of that you'll have to learn for analyzing the data quantitatively. Questionnaire, as I said, you can go to the field questionnaire, etc. You also have to learn a survey method. You'll have to learn, and I can recommend your books later in case you're interested in those methods. Also, if you're doing quantitative analysis, then you'll have to do what? You'll have to learn one of the softwares, be it SPSS or Stata or R. There are several softwares through which you feed the data in the computer, and you'll have to analyze the data. And what it does, it can get you regression, it can give you pie chart, it can give you, this what you call t-test, p-test, etc. So all of that you can do. For that, you'll have to learn the stats. So Introductory Statistics by Wanacott and Wanacott, the one book that I recommend to many students, and I teach that in my class here. So if you're from social science background, that's a very basic book, which from where you can learn entire stat from standard deviation until what you call it regression of several types. So quantitative, but if you're doing qualitative, again, historical method, you'll have to, if you are from history background, so you'll have to do courses on historiography, historical method, how to do, this collect the data in history. So that you'll have to do in political science, either quantitative or qualitative. Qualitative again includes historical method, but also case study method, anthropological method. So these are the qualitative. So if you're from English literature background here, so then the discourse method, content analysis, etc. What you do, that again would be qualitative, sometimes quantitative, but mostly qualitative. So you'll have to learn one of the methods, how to make sense of it, how to avoid biases, how to collect the data, how to validate the data, etc. So all of that you have to learn in. Again, in qualitative method, that process tracing is one thing that you need to remember. Process tracing means that it does not take into account variables. Process means that every step and mechanism of that becomes important. Say, for instance, if you study, if you do well in the class here, it's very likely that you will get a good job. So, but there are steps involved. You cannot simply say that you studied here and you got the job. You have to study well. That will lead to better grades in the exam. That better grade means, you are likely to gain better knowledge. And better knowledge would mean that you performed better in the interview. And if you performed better in the interview and the examination, then that means the employer will think that you have a better chance of performing. You are very disciplined, and you are likely to perform better compared to a student who does not have a good knowledge and who has not good grades. So every step is so process tracing is another, again, a very important step where causal mechanism important, and that is used by who? That is used by people who do qualitative researches. Uh, so uh, yeah, so that having said that, the data analysis. So once you have analyzed the data using qualitative, quantitative, etc., so then it comes testing of the hypothesis. In the conclusion chapter, in the conclusion chapter, you must say that what in every chapter you will conclude, you will provide a conclusion, but again, conclusion is also a separate chapter where you will provide your findings. If you go for assistant professor interview, they'll ask you that what is your finding. The first question they ask you that what is your thesis on, and what are your findings. So then in that chapter, you will say that, sir, this was my research question. This was the hypothesis that I formulated, and these were the findings with the help of the data that you have. All right, finding number 1, 2, 3. So you can write in numbers, but you can also write just in the conclusion chapter, which is 10-15 pages, not too long. But there you are given the findings. So what was the finding of each chapter that you will summarize in the chapter of the conclusion. But coming to the chapter, how do you, I told you how to structure this PhD thesis, but how to structure the, now I'm deviating here. I told you the research methodology part, but I'm deviating here because you're a PhD student, you will be writing synopsis. So how to write a synopsis? Let me give you a very concrete guideline here, and that's what we follow in our department in Jawaharlal Nehru University. So what we do, I ask the students to write a synopsis. A synopsis comes after the coursework. So in the coursework, what we do that, in the coursework, after the coursework, we ask them to write a synopsis. So we ask them to write a synopsis of roughly 15 to 20 pages. This is a research purpose. Synopsis is what? A synoptic view of the entire thesis that you're planning to do. So it's a kind of research proposal that you're proposing for the committee, that this is what you want to work on. So we ask the students to write a background. Background means whatever topic and theme that you have chosen, this should be 2 pages. I'll share the synopsis with you. I'll share with the Simran here, and Simran can share with the research manual that we have for School of International Studies, and it would be useful for many of you. So when it comes to synopsis, we tell the students to write 2 pages about the background. So detail about the particular issue that you are dealing with, and in that, you can go a bit in history. You can also go a bit into the background of the problem and try to formulate a kind of systematic argument there. Then second part is review of literature. So background is 2 pages, and second part is review of literature, and we ask them to do a review of literature means. Because we are at the stage of synopsis, just finished the coursework, we have not written the thesis. So after we review of literature would be 6 pages. And that is very important because we want you to know that what has been written in this field, who are the important scholars in the world, not just India, but the entire world, who have worked on this topic and who have published on this topic, which are important in the field. So you are expected to read, in any, on any particular topic, there would be 10-15 books, and there will be 30-40 articles. So that you are expected to review. All right, that you are expected to read and get the crux of the argument that would be required in the review of literature. But many times students, actually, to be honest, even in JNU, I've seen students don't read that many books. They read a few books and few articles, and they prepare the synopsis. But ideal synopsis, you will have to do that. And when you go for thesis writing, you certainly will have to read a few books and a certain article. So review of literature would be primarily secondary review of literature because we have not visited the field. So you review the key arguments. And when you are giving the review of literature, you have to, sometimes what people do. So, okay, this is Rajan Kumar's book, Reemerging Russia, and then you write a few lines about that book. No, that's not review of literature. Review of literature is you have formulated the research question. What is the answer that these people have given in related to your research question? So it has to be thematic. A review of literature, you have to divide the sub themes into 3, 4, 5 parts, and then keeping your research question in mind, just give the reference related to the research question or the hypothesis that you have in mind. Not everything. You are not expected to write the summary of the book. No, that's not. And it should not be book wise. It should never be the author wise. When I go for review, because I invited in all the committees and different committees, UGC, different ICR, different kind of funding agency, etc. So when the moment I see, that person has done this book after this book, argument of this book, that's I get upset. I said that's not the way to do the review of literature. You are expected to give the argument, and after the argument, in the bracket, you write the last name of the author and the year. And if you have given quotation, then the page number. So that's how you review the literature, and you can club. Many people have said the same thing. Then you can club the arguments of the scholars together, and do not do never do the book wise. That's a bad review, and that shows that you do not have the good training. So not book wise, theme wise, and even within the theme, not a scholar after the other. Give the argument, and in the bracket parenthesis, you please give the name, last name of the author, bracket divided by comma, and then the year. And if you are given the quotation, the publication, the page number. The referencing style, again, you will have to check, because every university has a different style of referencing. We in JNU at this moment, in my department at least, School of International Studies, we follow the Chicago Manual of Referencing. So the latest edition of Chicago, that is accepted by our university. But you please check with your university. Your university might be having a research manual. If it does not have a research manual, if you're a social science background, you can claim that you are using something from JNU. But most of the university will have certain guidelines. You will have to follow that guideline. Chicago would be different. Harvard would be different. And then there are other different types of manuals. The Psychological Association of Health. So there are different types which are used by different universities. They tell you how to do footnoting, how to do referencing, what will come first, the last name or the year, whatever. So the entire sequencing is important, and you have to be very meticulous and careful when you doing the referencing. But anyway, so first is background, 2 pages, review of literature, 6 pages, and then definition, rationale, and scope of the study. Define some of the concept that you might be using would be novel concept. So you please define the concept. So what is the concept that you want to use? And because people will not know many of the concepts that you might be using. So you need to define the concept. You need to define, sometimes variable are not well understood. You want the people, the reader, to know the way you understand it, right? So that's the idea of writing. So you will have to tell them this is the meaning definition of. So define the vague concept, vague ideas, and vague variables that you might be using in your thesis. So define a rationale. So define definition and rational scope. This is the third section of the your synopsis. Then what you do, you write 1.5 page, half a page, or sometimes it can be 1.5 page also. That is fine. So what you do, you define the concept. You give the rationale. Rationale, RATIONALE. This is not rational. Rationale. So rationale means you have to give the justification. You have to justify that why your research is, why are you doing this research? Why your research is different? So you will claim your rationale in terms of 4 things. What I told you in the beginning of the class. 4 things that, either you say that you are asking a research question which has not been asked. You can claim that you are using a data which has not been used, or you are adding some new data which probably was not there. You can claim that you are analyzing in a different way the methodology which has not been used, or either your research question has to be novel, or what you call data has to be novel, or data analysis. All right. Or if you're proposing a theory, just say that you're proposing a new theory, and that's why this research is different and unique. So that is rationale. All right. So you'll have to give justification in your research synopsis, but also when you write your chapter, the first chapter most of the times is the extension of your synopsis, first chapter that you write for your thesis. So what you're writing here, that again will remain relevant, that will constitute the first chapter of your thesis also. So that is rational scope of the study. So what is the scope in terms of scope can be understood in 3 ways. What is the temporal domain? What is the time period that you're dealing with? And democracy in India. So if you do not say scope, then people will say, what period you are talking about? Are you talking about the ancient time, medieval time, etc.? So people will get lost. So you need to define and limit the scope of the thesis by saying that this is the time period that you're studying. Sometimes you might be using the concept of democracy, but you say that democracy in South Asia. So define in terms of geography. So a spatial, 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 in temporal, in terms of time, that 1980 to 1989. So I've given a time period. So temporal scope you have defined. Sometimes you can also say that your scope is in terms of, that, you are, this is policy relevant. So if there is policy scope, you can say that. So all of that would be discussed in the scope, and the third section, definition, rational scope, will constitute 1.5 page of your synopsis. Then you'll have to give research questions or research problem. Many times, in most of the places, we encourage students to number the questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions, and number it. But in some places, they call it research problem or problematic. Sometimes, in Cambridge and many places I've seen that they say that research puzzle. So they don't ask you to research question, give a puzzle. Puzzle, as you know, that English term. So puzzle you'll have to formulate. So there are different ways, but essentially it is the same thing. Either you're answering a research question, you are answering a research puzzle. So that you'll have to write, 6, 7 questions, research question. You can go in here with the research question, that's perfectly fine. But many people don't want to number, they define the research problem in a paragraph. And sociology I've seen in many places, and which is also fine. Next is, after research question, you need to formulate your hypothesis. So hypothesis how many hypotheses you want to formulate? There's no limit, but if you have 4 research questions, so 4, 3, 2, 5, you can have 1 hypothesis, 2 hypotheses, you can have 5, 6 hypotheses, depending, but just keep the primary hypothesis in mind. You cannot have just too many hypotheses, because if you have, first you should be having the primary hypothesis, which would speculate the research question that you have formulated, the answer to that research question. So that would be 3, 4, 5 hypotheses. I've already said what is hypothesis. I'm not going to discuss it here. Then you'll have to write about the research method. Write half a page, 1 page about what method have you followed, right? And it can be, you'll have to say that this is a theoretical research, this is a deductive. If you're theoretical, then you can say this is a deductive research. If you're using a certain theory, you say certain theory that you're using, whatever theory you're proposing, or you're using somebody else's theory. So just say that you're using that in theory. Identify the variable. I tell my students to identify, if your study is empirical, so please identify the variables. What variables are you using? If you're from English literature, please say that if you're doing discourse method analysis, so say that discourse, I'm doing a discourse analysis. If you're doing content analysis, just say that you are going to do content analysis, and what is the content that you are focusing. So just write all of that. So identify if you're doing empirical in social sciences, most of you would be doing empirical. So identify the variables, and you'll have to say in the research methodology section, how did you collect the data? How are you planning to collect the data? Sorry, at this stage, how are you planning to collect the data? Do you have any question? Are you planning to go for a field trip? What population are you going to this thing? That is primary. You will also have to say, so I'm going to collect the data from IMF, World Bank, United Nations, scientific data, this UGC, whatever. So just say, but be very specific when it comes to telling here what exactly data do you need, are you going to collect, and how are you going to collect? And not only how and why, but also how are you going to analyze the data? Then you can say qualitative, quantitative, you'll be using regression, you'll be doing process tracing, you'll be doing case study, all of that you'll have to write. Okay, so research methodology, a very important section, and most of the academics, the proper professors like me, immediately when they go, they'll check, what methodology has it followed, what data this person is doing. So that's how they see it. The moment I say that, oh, this method, or this is, so I lose my interest. So I'll be interested in reading your paper to recommend the publication if your methodology is very appropriate, and if you have done a proper, if you write really well, identifying variables, then descriptive, analytical, all of that you'll have to do. Write 1 page about methodology at the level of synopsis. After that, what? Then after that, section number 6 is tentative chapters. So tentative chapters. So as I said, 4, 5, 6, and not 4, have at least 5 chapters, where 3 main chapter, 2 introduction, conclusion. But sometimes you can have 6, 7, 8 chapter, and that is perfectly fine. So write the title of the chapter in synopsis, all the titles, and as what did I say? The title should emerge from the primary research question that you have, because it's a very integrated process. Research question, hypothesis, whatever you have formulated, so it should emerge from there. So have 6, 7, 8 chapters, and then you'll have to also in research, you'll have to when you're writing a thesis, you'll have to have, there are certain rules like that. That's Times Roman. There has to be a certain structure, the font size, etc., certain margin, etc. So all of that you have to technically follow, and I'm not discussing in today's class. And many times the student ask me, they confuse about 2 things: bibliography and reference. See, when you're doing in-text referencing, which means I've given the last name of the author in the bracket in the text, so then I'll have to give the details in the reference section. All right, so that is a reference. Bibliography means something different. Although many of the teachers also don't know it. The difference here is that if you're giving a bibliography, then you might include some of the books which you have not quoted in the text, which you have not referred to in the text, but something which you would like the audience to know, which you think might be useful. So that is bibliography. So reference is absolutely necessary. You have to have anything that you have cited in the text. The details must be there in the reference section. Footnote, whether you should use the footnote style or the in-text referencing, that should be decided by the research manual that your university follows. All right, you'll have to check with your supervisor that what manual should I follow. It cannot be mixed. Sometimes people do this footnoting also, and they do reference in-text reference. That's the wrong thing. And the moment any article comes to me, I reject the article if it has that kind of mistake. So please be careful about the references, and references would be decided by your university rule. In my university, I follow, as I said, Chicago manual, where author and the date is the style of referencing, and the details how to do it. You can learn it on your own, and I'm not getting into here. And use of artificial intelligence, as I said finally, that artificial AI we allow the students to use the AI, and we have said that students are okay to use. What they're not allowed, that they cannot copy even one or two sentences from ChatGPT and bring it in your. So that, as a researcher, please stop thinking that you ever do that. If you do that, you will never learn it, and you will be caught, and your dissertation might be considered plagiarism. Plagiarism is a crime, as I said, ethical crime. Plagiarism is not about just copying and pasting. That's a dacoity. Plagiarism is also about taking the ideas. You have taken Rajan's idea. What I taught you, teaching is fine if you learn and you can do it. But if you're using somebody's word, if I publish something and you're using my words and without giving reference, then it's a plagiarism. And even if you're using my text somewhere, so you'll have to paraphrase it, which means you'll have to change in your own words. You cannot use my words. Remember, if you're using my words, then you'll have to give quotation marks, and then you have to give the page number. If you are not giving quotation, that would be considered plagiarism. Can you copy two sentences of Rajan Kumar and paste in it? No, you can't. If not even two sentences, anything more than 7 words would be considered plagiarism. So you have to be careful about plagiarism, and students have tendency, because they are under a lot of pressure, they have to produce everything on time. So they just copy and paste from AI, and that's very common practice everywhere. So now you have to be careful, because there's many softwares which are available, and teachers can immediately find out, the way the comma is being used, the way dashes are being used. A smart teacher will immediately find whether it's AI copied or not. Many times I check research proposal in funding agencies, and they use ChatGPT to tell them the method, the copy and paste, and I reject the proposal. The moment I see that proposal, I reject it. I don't even consider it. So please use AI, but use with your intelligence. Do not copy. You can take the help of AI for grammatical correction. That's perfectly fine. You can take the help of Grammarly for grammatical correction, etc. That's perfectly fine. But what you cannot do, you cannot copy from AI and paste it into dissertation. And whenever you're quoting, as I said, the referencing will be. So I think, let me stop it here, because it's 8:30, and I'll be handling a few questions. I'll be answering the question. Simran, is that okay? Can I stop it here?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. That's fine.
Yeah. So let me
I'll
stop it here, and then we can have a few questions. Yeah. What time is it? Did I finish on time?
absolutely, sir. Dot point.
Okay. Wonderful.
8:30.
Yeah.
So I'll
Uh,
moderate a little bit.
yeah.
So anybody who has a question, there are two ways of asking. You can pop it in the chat or you can raise your hand.
I think I know this is also an interactive exercise, Simran. So I'll ask the students to come on camera and speak up, so that is better. And then I'll take the chat GPT and the chat bot, the questions which are in the chat box. Guys, come forward and please ask me the question. Don't be afraid. I speak Hindi, English, Bengali, Russian, Bhojpuri.
So can I ask something first?
And teacher comes later. Let the students ask.
Yeah, I took down 12 pages of notes for everyone for this session. So lots
Okay.
to discuss.
So students, please don't be afraid, don't be shy. You have to speak up. As a teacher, you'll not be a good teacher if you cannot come and speak on camera. So please learn the habit of asking questions. Please come forward. Who is going to come first?
Hello, sir.
Yes, yeah, Sukhvinder ji. I can't
Yes,
see you, but yeah.
sir. I just want to know, while we are conducting interviews in the field work, so how can we authenticate that data?
What do you mean by authenticating the data, Sukhvinder?
So while referring those case studies in the dissertation or thesis or in article, so how to convey that this data is authenticated, validated, and credible?
All right. Yeah. So if you talking about the validity and reliability of the data, so it basically authentication means validity and reliability of the data. First thing,
Yes.
yeah. So first thing is that the when you are writing something about the data, so you'll have to inform the audience that what kind of data have you used. If you do not inform, you say that I have a great data, but I'm not going to share with you, so nobody is going to trust you. So, but the moment you say I have used the data of Government of India, so most of the people will trust you. The moment you say I have IMF data, World Bank data, United Nations data, people will trust you. All right. So you'll have to use you'll have to authenticate data by saying that what is the source of data. Have you used any authentic source or not? Second, authentication might also, in your case, the way you are asking, it might refer to validity of the data. So you'll have to say that how do you measure the data? If you have collected the data yourself, so you'll have to say that where did you go? Who are the people that you contacted? Is the people have you contact the people that you have contacted, are they relevant to the field or not? Are they relevant to the research question that you have or not? Say for instance, as I said, that I'm working on India's foreign policy, and I go and collect the data from Varanasi, from the street vendors. So that makes no sense, right? I'll have to collect the data from the people who are diplomats or who are policymakers, academics, government professors. So that will bring authentication. That will bring validity of the data. But if I say take from some source just the data which is not valid, people don't trust. So a trust from one place would be transferred to trust from other place. So you'll have to have an authentic way of collecting the data, then letting people know that this is how I collected the data. If you don't write in the journal, people will say that, okay, they'll not trust you. But if you say you went to Chhattisgarh, you collected the data from anthropological field of Bastar, and you met these people, and that has been authenticated by the university review committee, because when they review, they tell you that you have to take permission from, and you will have to show who are the people you contacted the data. So that's how this trust building comes in the total academic exercise. Why do
Okay, sir.
people trust professors and not the politicians? They trust professors because they know that this person is saying, so there is institutional committee, checks and balances are there, and that's how they trust the professors. They immediately trust the JNU professor. Why? Partly because, or Delhi University or BHU. Why? Because they know that this person has written, it must be some kind of authentic source that he might have consulted. But if somebody, the same thing is done by somebody who is not from the people will doubt, unless until over the time you build the trust, etc. So that's how you authenticate the data. Next question.
Good evening, sir.
Can you?
Yes, Priyanka. Priyanka,
Yes, sir.
come forward. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sir, I have a question that if I conduct my research in the field of international relations and if I frame hypothesis for that, and if my research is completely based on secondary data and it is qualitative in nature, then how can I test my hypothesis? Or,
What is the, Priyanka, quickly, what is the research that you're planning to? What is your theme?
uh, sir, it is basically how India is um, using its strategic autonomy and how its multi-alignment strategy uh, shaping a multipolar world order.
So you are saying that you are, so all right. So you are saying that India's foreign policy and multipolarity, that's the broader theme that you have in mind. All right.
Yes,
So,
sir.
all right.
Because sir, recently I've completed my coursework, so I'm working on my synopsis.
Okay, so you'll say that you can formulate the this hypothesis. Say, for instance, I'm giving an example that India is having India's foreign policy supports the idea of multipolarity because India views that it'll have better options in a multipolar world. So if this is the hypothesis that you formulated, why? What is the hypothesis here? That India supports the idea of multipolarity because India views that it will have better influence and better place to maneuver if the world becomes multipolar. So here the better maneuverability and the global influence, that is the independent variable, and multipolar world is the dependent variable. So you can formulate hypothesis like that, saying that the India will be placed better if the world becomes multipolar, and then you will have to support this. This becomes the hypothesis now, because it answers the question why India supports multipolarity. So India supports multipolarity because it thinks that the world is too much controlled by the Western countries. It thinks that the world, a bipolar world, is India, US, China is not in India interest. India as an emerging global power will have better say if the world becomes multipolar. So you'll have to say that in your hypothesis because you have a question about India's foreign policy multipolarity, and you will formulate by saying that India supports multipolarity because of its belief that it will have a better place to operate. It will have higher, greater influence in the international politics if the world becomes multipolar. So that becomes a perfect hypothesis. Do you get it?
Yes, sir, I'm getting. Sir, another question is that, sir, when we test our hypothesis, we always check like null hypothesis, not alternative one. So, sir, it means is null hypothesis
Okay.
always remains negative while
Wait.
framing, or it
Wait.
could also be
All
positive?
right. First, if you're not doing quantitative analysis, Priyanka,
Yes, sir.
so yeah, if you're not doing quantitative, you don't have to worry about null and alternative first. But
Okay.
if you are doing quantitative analysis, so in that case, the null hypothesis, the hypothesis is the broader assumption which is already there in the literature. You as a Priyanka, you as a researcher, you will be proposing your own alternative hypothesis, which will question the null hypothesis. All right. So your idea in your research should be to find evidence which can either support or reject the null hypothesis. If it supports your null alternative hypothesis, which means you will reject the existing hypothesis or existing assumption, and you will stick with the hypothesis that you have formulated. So alternative hypothesis is always something which goes beyond the standard belief which is there. You get it? And your hypothesis would be alternative hypothesis. And you don't have to write what is null hypothesis, what is alternative hypothesis here. You just write hypothesis, and that is considered as alternative hypothesis only. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Sir,
Okay.
sir, last question, a
Priyanka,
small
wait. I'll come back to you. I'll let others also ask. Yeah. Others, please. Who else?
Hello, good evening, sir. This
Sanjana.
is Sanjana.
Yes,
Good
Sanjana.
evening, sir.
Good evening,
Thank you
madam.
so much for the talk. Sir, I wanted to know if triangulation in IR research is possible while using only qualitative methods, or will including a quantitative aspect increase the accuracy and validity of the findings?
I think what are you working on? What is your topic?
Sir, I am only developing my proposal. So my idea is to bring
What what is your proposal on?
constructivism and chaos theory together in examining the role of multidimensional strategy in framing the Indo-Pacific region.
I think, yeah. So in your case, Sanjana ji, your case, it seems that is largely because you're talking about the in India's strategy in the Indo-Pacific. That's what, if I understand correctly. Is that the
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I think, yours would be largely qualitative because the kind of data that you'll be dealing with, you'll be dealing with most of the documents related to India's Indo-Pacific strategy. You'll also be dealing with, say, some of the strategies of the other countries, say, for instance, China's strategy,
Yes,
Quad, Japan's strategy, etc. So
yes, sir.
mostly you would be dealing with the this qualitative part. Most of the documents, government
Mhm.
policy, speeches of the different Quad meetings, etc. So your things is likely to be qualitative. But again, say for instance, in the same thing, you want also to deal with the trade which is taking place through the South China Sea, and
Yes, sir.
how that trade might be impacting the behavior of China, say for instance, right? And
Mhm.
in that case, you can actually use quantitative also, because that
Okay, sir.
economic data would be quantitative. So let me tell you that apart from qualitative and quantitative, some of the best researches are hybrid researches. In hybrid researches, what you do? In hybrid researches, you combine qualitative with quantitative. So you have done quantitative analysis, but also you do a case study to support the quantitative research. So that what you do, that you actually triangulate, you actually hybridize the research methodology process, where you are not using only qualitative, but you are also using quantitative. And sometimes I've seen people qualitative, quantitative, and game theory also. If you read Latin and Fearon on this, what you call ethnicity, ethnic conflict, etc. So he does quantitative, he does case study, and he also uses some of the game theory method. So all of
Okay,
that,
sir.
and in a strategy, because you're dealing with strategy, many of the classical papers on a strategy, Kugler and all, balance of power, etc. So they use game theory. So you'll have to learn a
Okay,
bit
sir.
of game theory also for you. Yeah. What next?
Thank you so much, sir.
You take care.
Good,
Yeah.
good evening, sir.
Good
Yes,
evening.
Suma. Yeah, Ayushi.
Yeah, sir.
I'll give preference to person who comes on camera. Yes, Ayushi.
Sure, sir. I'll do that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Ayushi, go ahead quickly.
yeah, thank you so much
Can
for
you see me?
the enriching session,
Yes.
sir. First of all,
Thank you.
so my question is for the literature review. There are two questions. First is like how to read classic text and analyze it, and how to basically frame conversations between different writers, and like how to see the parallels. And my second question is the logic of narrative is something that I miss while I write the chapters. Basically, the interlinkages between two literature, or maybe the argument that I'm trying to put. So the interlink between that. So how to maintain that while writing?
What is your exact proposal that you have in mind?
Sir, my topic is I'm a first year student, PhD,
Yeah.
and my topic is exploring symbolic violence amongst urban middle class women of Varanasi.
Okay, explore symbolic one. And you're from sociology background, or you're from?
No, I'm from political science background, but I have this interdisciplinary approach there.
All right. So exploring violence among women, you're saying, right?
Symbolic violence.
Symbolic violence. All right. And so what you need to do in your case, in Varanasi case of symbolic violence among women, you're saying, right?
Yes, sir. Urban middle class women of Varanasi.
Urban middle class women. All right. So your study is very empirical. All right. And here you will not use just the way people use in, say, English literature, where you'll be comparing one author with the other. That's not your concern here. What you need to do in your particular case, because you're from, your subject is very sociological, but you are political science, and that's perfectly fine as part of political sociology. So you'll have to first understand and define what you mean by symbolic violence. All right. And symbolic violence means, some kind of threaten, some kind of intonation, some kind of, the way the language is used in the family, in the society, in the media, in the institution, etc. So so you'll have to first, this is the most difficult part, is the measurement of this concept called symbolic violence. You'll have to identify through certain variables here that what is symbolic violence that you are referring to. Are you referring to some kind of verbal threats? Are you referring to some kind of, the way patriarchy is being portrayed in the media? Are you referring to the way patriarchal language is used in certain kind of, political discourse? So you will have to understand, you'll have to define what the symbolic violence means. And after that symbolic violence, you will now read the literature, the secondary literature that you're saying, that you will read, people who have worked on violence in general, but symbolic violence in particular. It can be in the form of verbal violence, it can be in the form of structural violence, which is not obvious, but it is there. That's right. So you'll have to understand in terms of, you'll have to basically break this concept, symbolic violence. You'll have to break it into measurable, variable kind of thing. And then you'll have to collect the data on each way. Say when a verbal abuses. So that's a very direct kind of thing. And so how verbal abuses become important in the family discourse, or in the political discourse, or in the social discourse, institutional discourse. So then you will, collect the data from all the sources. Secondary literature. Secondary literature means the people who worked on it, that will constitute the secondary data. But also you can go and do the field survey. You can go and talk to women, and you will ask that, ask questions on what? Ask questions on variable that you have identified to measure the concept of symbolic violence. On each variable, you will ask one or two questions from the respondent that you ask. So you'll frame a structured or non-structured questionnaire, and based on that, you'll consult people, and then you will conduct data survey from there. You get it? And then you analyze it. Your analysis can be qualitative as well as quantitative, but mostly I think I'll prefer qualitative in your case because
Yes.
your training seems to be qualitative rather than quantitative.
Yes, that's right, sir.
Okay, okay. Yeah. Who? Sumant.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Uh, Sir, the thing is, I want to ask about while framing the research, how to go on with the limitations and delimitations. So next question is very much relating with it. So, for example, I'm working on a research which is something on the basis of very normative analysis, but I want to shift to the empirical process. Let's say something connected to political anthropology, and later shifting to the bilateral relation in the international relations sector.
What is
So
your
how
title?
to
Yeah, Sumanta, tell me what is your title of the research that you have?
Sir, I want to work on sir India-Nepal relation based on the basis of its diaspora,
So
like
when you,
Nepali diaspora.
yeah, understood. So if it's Indian Nepal, Sumant, which place are you from?
I'm from Assam, sir.
Okay, wonderful. So Sumant, if you're talking about India-Nepal relationship, so then why did you use the term normative? So what normative aspect do you have in mind? I
Sir,
just want to understand.
sir, I just want to go through the political anthropology part, sir, through the diaspora studies and all.
No,
The
but
theories built around it.
well, no. Because if you're dealing with India-Nepal relationship, I'll suggest you not to go into political anthropology. That's not the relevant method that would be appropriate here. If you work on, say, Madeshis in Nepal, then you can go for anthropological approach. You getting me?
Sir, mine is something like that. I'm working on the Nepalis residing on India and how they form the bilateral relations of the India and Nepal.
All right.
There's something like that.
Okay, so then the topic is different. It's not India-Nepal relation. If you study Nepalis in India and its impact on, say, the impact of Nepali diaspora or Nepali citizen on the India's foreign policy, so then you can do anthropological research, and that makes sense. So then what you will have to do, then you will have to formulate a frame, structured and non-structured questionnaire, and you'll have to do survey with the Nepali people living in different parts of India. And say, for instance, 300-400 people, you prepare, you can have a structured, but you can also have non-structured questionnaire because many times structured questionnaire do not work with the certain communities. So you'll have to have broader question in mind that first you'll have to think of that what aspect of Nepali diaspora might be impacting India-Nepal relationship. So say, for instance, is there any discrimination of Nepali people in India? All right. So if that
Yes, sir.
and also discrimination in what sense? Is that linguistic discrimination? Is it racial discrimination? Is it the discrimination on the basis of citizenship? Is it the discrimination on the basis of per capita income of Nepali citizen? Or is it because of the nature of work which are involved in it? You getting me? So you'll have to have questions on each one of them. All right. I'm just broadly, because I haven't
Yes,
really
understand.
yeah, so you'll have to frame questions on discrimination and how that discrimination is being represented in the political forums of different Nepali organizations which might be there. Is the government of Nepal raising this issue in the discussion between India and Nepal? All right.
Mhm.
How
Yes, sir.
has it impacted the policy of Nepal towards India? Has it impacted
Mhm.
India's policy towards Nepal? So then you will have to find the correlation between the two, which is not an easy task. We'll have to say that how this has changed the feeling, how this has you can also find the relationship between the present government, the ideology of the present government vis-a-vis Nepali people, and how that has impacted India's policy towards Nepal, and how that same mindset has impacted the Nepalese mindset towards India, and that might be impacting the way policy discourse is taking place between the two countries. And you'll have to meet experts also, not just Nepali citizens, but also you'll have to meet 10, 15, 20, 30 experts from Nepal and India both, ambassadors or the people who are writing on this issue, and take some interview. And they will give you some qualitative perception. You get it?
So that's what I was thinking of while taking the interviews and surveys. Like, what kind of methods should I follow? Like, for example, while
I
going
think
through this, I should go through the snowball sampling, something kind of that.
no,
Somebody
no,
should.
no. For you, snowball sampling is not needed. For you, simple survey is good enough. Because a lot of people are available to give interviews on this particular topic. Your topic is not very confidential or secret. So people will talk on this issue, and you need to conduct interviews with some of the Nepali people in different parts of India. You need to conduct some of the experts. All right. And the secondary literature is already there, so you'll read some of the literature. Okay. And then collate all of this in the argument and to answer the research question. Okay, next.
Thank you, sir.
Next.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Shalu Pandey ji. आप कैमरा में
Yes,
आ
sir.
जाइए.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Yes,
Good evening,
Shalu.
sir.
Introduce yourself so that
So
I
my
also have an
question,
idea. I also have an idea who are you and where are you from.
sir, myself Shalu Pandey. I'm a first year PhD scholar in Department of Political Science, University of Allahabad.
Okay. Political science.
Sir, my
Why
yes,
political
sir.
science? Shalu, my
Yes.
student Brahmaya is teaching there. Political
Okay.
science.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I know.
Chekali Brahmaya.
Brahma, yes, sir. Yeah. He's the
Yeah.
coordinator of our coursework.
Brahmaya sir has already circulated this program.
Okay. Acha,
Yes, sir.
Sandeep is also here.
Due to him, we
Okay.
got to know.
Yeah, Shalu,
So,
go
sir,
ahead.
my query is related to my topic. My topic name is Women Empowerment Through Representation, special study of women cabinet ministers in India since 2009. So, my
Tell me again,
question is,
but Shalu, tell me, women representation in, what did you say?
so women empowerment through representation, a
Acha,
study of
women.
women cabinet ministers in India since 2009. So, sir,
Okay.
my question is, since I have put this in my research methodology, the interview session to be taken from with the women cabinet ministers. So, my question is, sir, what if I do not get the opportunity since that's the elite class? So, what if I do not get the opportunity to interview them? So, my study will be authenticated or not?
All right. See, that's a very good question, Shalu. So let me tell you that that's a very good question because many of the times you are dealing with the incomplete data.
Yes, sir.
Please, all of you know that no data, irrespective of what you do, is ever the complete data. So we are always dealing with the imperfect data and incomplete data. Because it's not possible to do every survey. Ideal research would have done all the surveys, but the question is that can we do a research on the if we do not go for the field trip? Answer is yes. It's possible to do the research even on the basis of secondary data which is available or some of the primary data which might be available with the government institution, etc. If you do a field survey, Shalu, if you do a field, if you go and meet the people, it's always preferable. Your data would always be considered better. If you meet some of the representatives, if you meet the women leaders in the political field, so your research would be considered much better compared to somebody who is working just on the secondary data. So my advice would be that you must go and meet at least some of the experts. If you cannot do a broad survey with the people, just at least some of the people, at least 20, 30 leaders, representatives you should meet, and some of the experts in the field. Women, women who are working on this issue of representation, professors, etc. So you should try to get their opinion, and that again will be considered very authentic because you have done it yourself. You collected the data. In our field, Sandeep knows it. Sandeep, that we are working on Russia, right? Russia, Central Asia, Europe, etc. That's the field of study, geopolitics, etc. But my students, many of them, they do not have money to go for the field trip to Russia. The government doesn't support them and they don't have resources, etc. So can they not do the research? They do. Most of the times they don't go for the field trip, but even then they submit the research because I know that many times it's not possible to visit the field. If it's possible, you must do it because that would be considered better. But if it's not possible for whatever reasons, that should not stop you from doing the research because you can also write a good dissertation with limited data that you are dealing with. And your research will not be considered inauthentic. It will be equally authentic if you're analyzing it in a scientific way, if you're dealing with the credible data, even if that is secondary in nature. So you can use the data of government, you can use the data of civil society, you can use the data of this different NGOs, etc. And that would be considered valid data. So don't worry. Next.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Who else?
Sir, I have one question again. As we talked, that qualitative paradigm would be the best suited thing for me, which is true. But then one criticism that I get is when we do in-depth interviews, for a concept like symbolic violence, when we do in-depth interviews and then we try to do a thematic analysis of that interview, and then we try to locate the manifestations of symbolic violence. So there can be one criticism that it is how I am interpreting it. The answers that they are giving, it is how I am interpreting it, and not, maybe it can be, maybe they were not trying to say that. So it can be like putting words in their mouth. So how to deal with that?
Remember one thing. When you're doing research, even if you do the best of the in-depth interviews, when it comes to writing, it always would be your writing. You can never, because of the, this what you call lost in the translation. So you will never be able to represent the person that you are that you have talked to in your interview. Yes, to the best of your understanding, to the best of your knowledge, you can be true to the whatever was being expressed there, though you will try to articulate their opinion, but it will always be articulated in your language, in your understanding, and so that amount of subjectivity will remain. I'm not saying that's bias. That's a part of the research process. You get it? You will have certain subjectivity. You will hide certain facts. You will be selective in your the way you will not write everything that has been said. So if you're not writing everything that has been said, which means you are selective. You are choosing something which you think is important from your perspective. So subjectivity will remain. So to the claim of the positivist that or claim of the very hardcore subjectivist that you should say only what the subject is saying, I think that's a misnomer. That doesn't happen anywhere. All right, because when it comes to writing, you would be selective, and that's perfectly fine. So long you should not be ethnocentric, which means you should not be judging the people on the basis of your liking and disliking. Second, you should not be carrying the prejudices based on your own value system when you're dealing with the other society. All right. But you are perfectly fine as a researcher to prioritize something. So this is your important for women violence, and this is something which is not important. You will not write everything which is said. You will be selective, and prioritizing a thing is perfectly fine with the part of the research because you think this is much more valid, much more important for the society or for your research. So that is perfectly fine, and there is absolutely no problem. But also you said in-depth interview would be in-depth interview and interpretation. You should focus on that because you'll go do an in-depth, non-structured kind of talking with the people, and on that basis you'll involve some interpretation. And what is interpretation? The same thing, the prioritizing that you do, writing in a certain language, and using your own subjectivity without trying to judge that person and the statement. So that is interpretation. Right? But your interpretation has to be supported by the data, by the fact, and that is considered perfectly valid. Okay. And in your case, and nobody here will ever think after this class that quantitative is better than qualitative. No, not at all the case. Yes, both are, if both are scientific, both are equally valid. You get it? So if somebody is saying, so he is prejudiced. If somebody is saying qualitative is better, that means prejudices. Somebody is saying quantitative is better, that means he is prejudiced towards certain thing. All right. And there's a huge debate between qualitative and quantitative people. Please read a book called Designing Social Inquiry. Designing Social Inquiry by King, Cohen and Bhabha. Princeton publication, all the professors of Princeton and Harvard. Designing Social Inquiry. And this book tells you that what are the linkages between qualitative and quantitative inferences and how they are very similar. And you'll also learn many of the things from that book. So please read that book. What else? Who else?
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Namaskar, sir.
Hello, sir. Good evening, sir.
Oh, sorry to interrupt everyone. We are a little short on time, so we can only have one last question.
Hello, ma'am.
Ma'am, can you ask, ma'am?
Okay.
Can I ask, ma'am?
I think 2, 3, just come on camera quickly. Shivangi. Have you already asked Shivangi? No.
Yes. No, sir.
Hello, sir.
Okay. So the preference would be to person who has not asked the question.
Hello, sir.
Shivangi, yes, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So as you have already explained few points that we should keep in our mind while writing literature review. Sir, along with that, what we can include in our literature review to make it more critically analytical and make it more qualitatively good?
All right. So Shivangi, what you should do that, first when read only, excuse me. So read when you're doing the review of literature, not everything is relevant for you. Only the research questions that you have formulated, and that part is relevant to you. And when you are doing the review of literature, please focus on that. Say, for instance, I'm interested in electoral process in India. So I'll be saying that what this person, the book that you're reading, what this person is saying about the electoral processes in India. All right. And related to my research question, is that effective, ineffective? So if he's saying that that this electoral process is very effective in India, so I'll give the sentence, I'll paraphrase the sentence and give the last name of the author. Why I'm using that review? Because that question, that statement helps me understand the research question that I have formulated. So I'll use only that part of the literature which is relevant to my research question or my hypothesis or my theory. You getting it? The entire book may not be
Yes,
relevant.
sir.
So your review again has to be very specific. And in that, if I say that, that the 3, 4 authors who have said the same thing or the similar thing, so what I'll do that I'll write my statement and keep all 4 authors together, that these are the people who think that electoral process is very effective in India. And then Atul Kohli and this Huntington, Kumar, Prasad, whatever. So I'll give the names and in the bracket saying that this review, these are the scholars who say that electoral process. But now, because we want to engage critically with that, but you will say though that although these scholars say that, but there are other scholars who do not agree to this. So, and for instance, you will say that Yogendra Yadav says that electoral process is not working because of this reason, and according to him, these are the So then I have created a fight among the 2 scholars, right? So I've critically engaged these 2 scholars, and then comes my opinion. What do I think of these two? Do I agree with Yogendra Yadav? Do I agree with Atul Kohli? Or is it that I do not agree with any one of them? Is all 3 are possible. So based on what I think and what my data says, then I'll come to my opinion, which will come later, not in the review of literature. That will come later. And that I'll say in the rationale. When you write your rationale, that what is the justification of your research? How is it different? How is it novel? What is the new thing that you're going to do? What is the new ground that you're going to break? All right. Yes,
Yes, sir.
Samsung SM516B. Please come forward. You wanted to ask me something. What's your name?
Yes, sir. So my
What?
name is Priyanka Kulkarni.
Priyanka, which place are you from?
So I'm from Karnataka, Dharwad.
Oh, that's wonderful. Priyanka, tell me. Go ahead. Shoot me.
Sir, I'm a law graduate. I'm doing my post graduation, that is LLM.
Yes.
So my question is, I'm doing my dissertation on the topic of digital public infrastructure, the constitutional challenges of digital public infrastructure. So for this topic, which method will be a good for data collection? That is, uh, should I go for field works like interviews or questionnaire?
All right. Okay. Digital public infrastructure, it can be qualitative, it can be quantitative. Depending on your research. Have you done any course on quantitative research?
No, sir.
Okay, not a problem. So then in that case, I'll out. And what stage of PhD you are in?
No, I'm not doing PhD, sir. I'm a post graduation student, so I'm
Okay.
doing my dissertation.
Okay. So at this stage, what I'll recommend you that you do a qualitative research. And constitutional framework, legal aspect, etc. You know better. So please have that framework. And then for digital public infrastructure, you can conduct some interview from the people who are involved in policy making, who might be some bureaucrats, who might be some the people of the corporates. Because you live in Bangalore, it's possible that you'll meet, say, people from digital public infrastructure is provided by who? Are you referring to social media infrastructure? Are you referring to just the government data, etc., which is provided by the government of India? So depending on the specific question that you have, if your data is coming from the government, so you'll have to meet one of the directors of the government or some of the people from the government. But if you're dealing with the corporate data, so then you'll have to meet some of the people in the corporate sector. It can be not necessarily CEO. CEO will not give you time at this stage for LLM research. They'll not give you time. So even the lower officers, who are dealing with the programming, who are dealing with the data in the different corporate field. Say for instance, you might digital public infrastructure. Say for instance, you want to know Aadhaar data. right? So you will have to meet somebody who is dealing with Aadhaar data. Somebody who is part of that broader office, or somebody who is writing on that. So you might interview somebody who has worked on Aadhaar system. You get it? Somebody who is either a bureaucracy or even the professor. Many times professors of IIM or public universities, they also write and publish. You might be reading some of the articles of them. So just you can take interview of them, and that would be considered very authentic way of doing the research. You getting me? But if
Yes,
you
sir.
go for PhD later, then you can go for a larger, public digital infrastructure, and then you can bring in social media and Facebook and different type of infrastructure. Then you can do quantitative also. But for that, you will also require some kind of quantitative training. And since you are doing LLM here, I know at the moment you don't have too much of time. So just focus on this qualitative part, documentation part, public documents, public policy documents, that would be relevant, constitutional provisions, etc. Those would be relevant to you, and some interviews that would be good enough for you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. Who else? युवराज quickly. कैमरा पे आ जाइए. आप शर्मा क्यों रहे हैं हमसे?
Sir, because of network.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, ask me without camera, and
Namaste,
please
sir.
tell me which place you're from.
Sir, I am from Uttar Pradesh, basically.
Which place in Uttar
But
Pradesh?
right now, I'm currently
Okay, switch off. Yuvraj, switch off the camera because you are not audible properly. So switch off the camera. Yuvraj, switch off the camera. Just speak in the mic. Switch off the camera because I couldn't hear the question. Yuvraj, yes. Ask me now.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Ask me, Yuvraj.
Now, sir, am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. पूछिए.
Okay. Sir, actually, I'm the student of the first batch of fourth year, like undergraduate program, doing research. So, sir, can you please shed some light on my topic of research I've chosen?
Yuvraj, I got
My
your question.
topic of research.
Listen. Yuvraj, I got your question. You want
an analytical framework and its relevance in the modern development dilemma.
Yuvraj, I couldn't hear you completely, but what I understood that can I help you in framing a topic at the fourth year of your research? So I think Yuvraj, for that I'll not be the right person because that will depend on the right person would be your teacher in university, because what are the things that you need to keep in mind when you choosing a topic? You should choose a topic where there is some expertise available in your faculty, because faculty may not be be the expert on everything. I'm not a great expert on, say, for instance, gender or environment. So I'm not the right person to supervise. But if you want to work on politics, geopolitics, international affairs, then I'm the right person for. So similarly, you will have to see your supervisor there or teacher there. So what are they work on? If they work on, say, development, so it's very fine that you can work on one of the issues related to development. Second thing you would need to keep in mind, what kind of literature or data would be available, what kind of library access that you have. Because you'll at fourth year, etc., you'll not be going for the field trip. So, but you might be accessing the library. So you cannot choose a topic for which, I've chosen a topic for which there's no data available in the library. So what do I do with that? So choose a topic for which some data will also be available, and you know that you can go and collect the data. All right. And third would be, what kind of training do you have? Do you have a training which is qualitative? Mostly you will have qualitative. So at this stage, I'll suggest you that you can choose a topic broadly related to the first, your interest, second, expertise of the supervisor or the teacher, third, availability of the data, and fourth, then if you can analyze qualitative or quantitative, etc. So that's what you should do, Yuvraj. And I'm not sure if I understood your question completely, but what I understood, this is the answer. Okay, and anybody else quickly? Anybody else quickly? Let's finish it. Otherwise,
Hello, Shimran. Please try to end the session. Vote of thanks.
Sure, sir. All right. I assume that there are no more questions.
Yeah, I couldn't answer the chat. There must be many questions in the chat,
Yes,
but we
sir.
don't have time. So my apology to all of you. All right. You guys take care. Wish you all the best.
So, on behalf of everybody that's in attendance, I would just like to say that this was a very enriching session, not just theoretically, but also on a personal level, because you took the students through training in objectivity as well. My PhD journey, I wish I had a mentor like yourself who could hold my hand and take me through the emotional stages of being a scholar. You also helped us understand how to position our research effectively, how to communicate to a global audience, and where to draw the line between, overcomplicating a topic and communicating to the right audiences. Personally, I've learned a whole lot, and I'm pretty sure all of the other students have had similar experiences. Once again, thank you very much, sir, for sparing your time and enlightening so many of us. I'm sure all of us left this room very deeply inspired at a time where universities are frequently targets and underfunded. It is figures like yourself that help all of us keep going and in a focused and structured way. So, thank you for reigniting that hope in academics and in an active politics of change. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, sir.
Thank you, everyone. And wish you all the very best for your PhD. And I'm here in India, and you can, yeah, I'm everywhere in social media. You can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Facebook, everywhere, and you'll get more information. Thank you. Thank
Sir,
you.
we will share your link ID, social media
Yes,
ID in the
yes,
group.
yes, yes, yes. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you,
Bye.
sir.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
So, for everybody who's attended today, thank you for sparing the time. And on behalf of the Forum for Global Studies, we would like to see you guys engage with us long term. FGS is a premier think tank which focuses not just on academia but connecting academics to industry as well. We have lots of programs planned in the capacity of mentorships and introducing you to opportunities abroad as well. Personally, I completed my academic training from Australia, and as a scholar from India, it opened up a whole world of opportunities for me. We would like to replicate my experience and make it possible for many, many more scholars. So please stay in touch. Our group is really active. We like to discuss topics which underpin the world of geopolitics today. And thank you very much, everyone. We will circulate Sir's details on the group as well. He's very active on delivering online lectures, YouTube, Twitter, you name it. So academia is now entering the age of social media as well. So please keep engaging with these conversations. And thank you once again. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.